The massive space station called Concordia hung in the dark between stars like a metal moon. Inside its great chamber, 12 different alien species sat in a perfect circle. Each group looked different from the others. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked like walking crystals. But they all shared one thing. They were angry. Ambassador Zethkai stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. His people, the Vrexians, had ruled part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of all those years. "We are here today because of the humans," Zethkai said. His words echoed in the big room. "These newcomers have broken our laws. They have ignored our rules. They think they can do whatever they want." The other aliens nodded. Some made angry sounds. Others just stared with their strange eyes. Zethkai walked to the center of the circle. Above him, a big screen showed pictures of human colonies spread across many worlds. "Look at this," he said. "In just 300 years, they have taken over 50 star systems. They never asked permission. They never paid the taxes we require. They act like they own the galaxy." A creature that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles. "The humans are dangerous," it said in a buzzing voice. "They give weapons to species that should not have them." "Exactly," Zethkai said. He waved one of his 4 hands, and the screen changed. Now it showed other alien species, some that looked like hive creatures, others that seemed to live in water, and some that were made of living crystal. "The humans have shared their technology with these primitive species. They have made them stronger. This goes against everything we stand for." The council had rules. Old rules. Rules that said which species could have advanced technology and which could not. The council decided who was smart enough, who was worthy enough. It had always been this way. "The humans refused to follow our guidance," another council member said. "This one looked like a floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles. They say our rules are unfair. They say all species should be treated equally." Several council members made sounds of disgust. Equal treatment was not how the galaxy worked. The strong ruled the weak. The old civilizations guided the new ones. This was the natural order. Zethkai raised all 4 of his arms for silence. "The time for patience is over," he said. "We have sent warnings. We have tried to negotiate. The humans ignore us every time. Now we must act." He pressed a button on a small device. The doors to the chamber opened, and a single human walked. And the human was small compared to most of the council members. She had dark skin and short black hair. She wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations except a small pin that showed Earth, the human home world. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she was Earth's ambassador to the council. Sarah walked calmly to the center of the circle. She did not look afraid, even though she was surrounded by beings who could destroy her world with a single command. She stood straight and waited. "Ambassador Chen," Zethkai said, "we have called you here to deliver our final decision. The Council has been patient with humanity for too long. Your species has proven that it cannot be trusted to follow galactic law." Sarah said nothing. She just watched him with calm, dark eyes. Zethkai continued. "The United Earth Federation has 72 standard hours to comply with our demands. You will abandon all colonies beyond your home system. You will submit to full council oversight. You will stop all unauthorized technology sharing immediately. You will pay the taxes you owe, plus penalties for your years of disobedience." The other council members murmured agreement. Some looked pleased. Others looked impatient, as if they wanted to skip the warnings and go straight to punishment. "If humanity does not comply," Zethkai said, "the Council will use force. We will take your colonies by military action. We will blockade your trade routes. We will treat Earth as a rogue world that threatens galactic peace." Sarah listened to every word. When Zethkai finished, she was quiet for a long moment. The chamber was so silent that the hum of the station's engines seemed loud. Finally, Sarah spoke. Her voice was steady and clear. "Thank you for making your position clear," she said. "The United Earth Federation has heard your demands." She paused and looked around the circle, meeting the eyes of each council member. Some had eyes like humans. Others had compound eyes like insects. Some had no eyes at all, but seemed to see her anyway. "We respectfully decline," Sarah said. The reaction was instant. Several council members jumped up from their seats. Others made loud, angry noises. One creature that looked like a walking tree began shaking its branches violently. "Impossible!" shouted the insect-like alien. "No species has ever refused council authority." "Foolish humans," cried another. "You do not understand the power you are challenging." But Sarah remained calm. She raised her hand slightly, and somehow the gesture made the room quiet again. There was something about her confidence that was unsettling. She did not act like someone who had just declared war on the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. "Let me be clear," Sarah said. "Effective immediately. All human territories and assets are withdrawing from council jurisdiction. We will remove ourselves from all council space within 1 week." Zethkai stared at her. "You cannot simply leave. The galaxy does not work that way. There are procedures. There are laws." "Your laws," Sarah said simply. "Not ours." She turned slowly, looking at each council member again. "You have made it clear that there is no place for humanity in your vision of the galaxy. We accept that. We will find our own place." "Where will you go?" asked the jellyfish creature. "There is nowhere beyond council space except empty darkness." Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a happy smile. "You might be surprised what exists in the darkness," she said. Before anyone could respond, Sarah bowed slightly, a gesture of politeness, not submission. "The Federation thanks the Council for this educational experience. We have learned much about your character. Goodbye." She turned and walked toward the door. No one stopped her. They were too shocked to move. At the door, Sarah paused and looked back one last time. "Oh, and Zethkai? You might want to start looking for new trade partners and new sources of the rare minerals you get from our space, and new routes for your shipping lanes that cut through our territory." Her smile grew wider. "You're going to need them." Then she was gone, leaving behind a chamber full of the galaxy's most powerful beings, all staring at the door in stunned silence. Zethkai was the first to recover. "Let her go," he said, though his voice shook slightly. "Let them all go. They will come crawling back when they realize what they have given up. No species can survive outside council protection." But as he spoke, he remembered Sarah's final smile. And for the first time in his long life, Zethkai wondered if the council might have made a mistake. Outside the station, Sarah's ship was already moving away, heading back toward human space. She sat in her cabin and activated her communicator. "This is Ambassador Chen," she said quietly. "The ultimatum has been delivered and rejected. Begin Phase 1. Far away, across human space, the greatest evacuation in galactic history was about to begin. The evacuation began before dawn on New Terra, humanity's largest colony world. Maria Santos had lived there for 30 years, watching the red sun rise over fields of golden grain that fed millions. She never thought she would see the day when humans would abandon their home. But there it was in the sky. A ship so large it blocked out the morning light. It was not like the cargo ships that usually visited the colony. This one was massive, with a dark hull that seemed to drink in the starlight. More ships appeared as she watched. Dozens, then hundreds, then so many she stopped counting. The evacuation order had come just hours after Ambassador Chen's meeting with the Council. Every human colony, every space station, every mining operation, all of them received the same message. pack everything. Take everything. Leave nothing behind. Maria's neighbors thought it was impossible. How could they move an entire world's population in just 1 week? How could they take their farms, their factories, their homes? But the ships that came were unlike anything they had ever seen. They were not just large, they were enormous. Each one could hold an entire city, and there were thousands of them. The loading process was just as strange as the ships themselves. Massive machines appeared from the cargo holds, machines that could lift entire buildings intact. Maria watched in amazement as they carefully picked up her apartment complex and loaded it onto a transport ship, complete with all the furniture. Still inside! "Where did these ships come from?" asked her neighbor, an old man named Tom. "I've never seen anything like them." Maria shook her head. She had worked for the colonial government for years, but she had never heard of ships like these. They were too advanced, too sophisticated. It was as if humanity had been hiding a secret fleet. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, the evacuation was even more impressive. The humans were not just taking their equipment, they were taking the mines themselves. Giant machines dug deep into the planet's crust, extracting entire sections of metal-rich rock. They were taking the planet's resources. With them, Captain Lisa Park of the Council observation ship Vigilant watched through her telescope in disbelief. She was Altarian, a species that had joined the Council 500 years ago. Her people were known for their careful observation skills, but what she was seeing made no sense. "The humans are dismantling their entire mining operation," she reported to her superiors. "They are taking not just the refined metals, but the raw ore, the processing equipment, even the structural foundations of the mines." Her commanding officer's voice came through the communicator, sounding puzzled. "That is not possible. The energy requirements alone would be enormous." "I am watching it happen," Captain Park replied. "They have ships that can carry entire mountains, and they are moving fast, faster than our best cargo vessels." Similar reports came from across human space. On the ocean world of Poseidon, humans were draining entire seas and loading the water into massive tanker ships. On the forest world of Greenwood, they were carefully transplanting entire ecosystems, taking the soil, the trees, even the insects, and small animals. But the most shocking evacuation was happening on Earth itself. Commander Vex of the Council Intelligence Division had been stationed near Earth for 2 years, watching humanity's home world. He had expected that Earth would be the one place humans would refuse to leave. It was their birth world, their origin. Surely they would defend it to the death. Instead, he watched as the largest evacuation in galactic history began. Ships appeared, in Earth's orbit by the thousands. They were not just the advanced vessels from the colonies. These were different, older-looking, but somehow more sophisticated. Some were so large they had their own gravity fields. Others seemed to phase in and out of normal space like ghosts. "This is impossible," Commander Vex muttered to himself as he watched his scanner readings. "There are more ships here than in the entire Council fleet." The evacuation of Earth was methodical and complete. Humans were not just leaving their cities, they were taking them. Entire sections of New York, London, Tokyo, and other major cities were being carefully disassembled and loaded onto the massive ships. But it was not just the cities. The humans were taking everything. They loaded soil from famous gardens. They took water from important rivers. They even took animals from zoos and wild preserves. It was as if they were determined to take their entire world with them. Commander, Vex sent urgent reports back to the Council. "The scope of this evacuation exceeds all projections. The humans have access to technology that we do not understand. They have resources that we never detected." The Council's response was dismissive. "Impossible," came the reply from Zethkai himself. "We have monitored human space for 3 centuries. We know their capabilities. They are simply using all their transport ships at once." But Commander Vex knew what he was seeing. These were not normal transport ships. These were vessels that could manipulate gravity, that could fold space, that could carry loads that should have been impossible, and there were species working alongside the humans that the Council had never seen before. Dr. Elena Vasquez was a xenobiologist working on the Human Research Station orbiting Jupiter. She had studied alien life forms for most of her career, but the beings helping with the evacuation were completely unknown to her. Some looked like floating crystals that communicated through light patterns. Others were beings of pure energy that could manipulate matter with their thoughts. There were creatures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, and others that appeared to be made of living metal. "Who are they?" she asked Captain Rodriguez, as they watched the strange beings help load the station's research equipment. Captain Rodriguez was an old spacer who had been traveling the galaxy for 40 years, but he looked just as confused as Dr. Vasquez. "I have no idea," he admitted, "but they know exactly what they are doing, and they are treating us like old friends." The evacuation was not just happening in human space. Reports began coming in from across the galaxy that other species were disappearing too. The Catharan hive minds, who humanity had helped develop faster-than-light communication, had vanished from their home world overnight. The aquatic Nereidans, who had received human terraforming technology, had drained their ocean cities and disappeared. The crystalline Vorthans, who humanity had traded with extensively, had abandoned their crystal cities and left without explanation. Council. Scouts who investigated these abandoned worlds found them completely empty, but they also found something else. Massive industrial structures under construction in the empty spaces between the worlds. Structures that were building something huge. Admiral Korthak of the Council fleet was a veteran of a dozen wars. He had conquered star systems and defeated rebellions, but the reports from his scouts made him nervous. "They are building something in the void," he told the emergency council session. "Something massive. Our long-range scanners detect energy signatures that do not match any known technology." "What kind of structures?" asked Zethkai. "Shipyards," Admiral Korthak replied grimly, "but not like any we have seen. These could build vessels the size of moons." The council members looked at each other with growing concern. When they had delivered their ultimatum to humanity, they had expected resistance. They had expected negotiation. They had not expected this. "Perhaps," said the jellyfish-like Counselor Thessarian, "we should reconsider our approach." But Zethkai would not hear of it. "They are running away," he declared. "Let them run. The galaxy is better off without their chaos and their refusal to follow proper order." Yet as the week progressed and more reports came in, even Zethkai began to wonder if he was right. The humans were not just leaving. They were leaving in a way that seemed planned, organized, and frighteningly efficient. On the 7th day, the evacuation was complete. Every human colony, every space station, every mining operation, all empty. Billions of humans and their alien allies had simply vanished into the darkness beyond the galactic rim. The Council celebrated. They had successfully enforced their authority. The troublesome humans were gone, and order had been restored. But in the empty spaces where human colonies had been, the abandoned worlds seemed to whisper a warning. Something vast was stirring in the darkness between galaxies, and humanity had not fled in defeat. They had gone home. 2 years had passed since the humans disappeared. The galaxy had moved on, or at least tried to. Council species had claimed the abandoned human worlds, setting up new colonies where Earth's children had once lived. The trade routes had been rerouted. The mining operations had been restarted. Life continued. But something felt wrong. Captain Zerath of the Council Patrol Ship Defender noticed it first during a routine patrol of the former human sector. She was a Cathari, a species known for their sharp senses and attention to detail. Her people had served the Council faithfully for over 2,000 years. "The shipping traffic is down 30%, she reported to her commanding officer. "The trade routes that used to go through human space are taking twice as long now." Her commander, Admiral Heska, was not particularly concerned. "That is to be expected," he replied through the ship's communication system. "The new routes are longer. The colonies are still being established. Things will improve." But Captain Zeroth was not convinced. She had been patrolling these sectors for 10 years, and she knew how space trade worked. The human territories had been perfectly positioned along major shipping lanes. Their disappearance had created gaps that were hard to fill, and there was something else. Something that made her nervous every time she passed through the empty systems where humans had once lived. The silence. Space was never completely silent. There were always ships moving, communication signals, the background radiation of active civilizations. But the former human sectors felt dead, not just empty, dead, as if something important had been removed from the galaxy itself. On the council world of Vexaria Prime, Trade Minister Dolmec was dealing with more serious problems. The economic reports that crossed his desk each day painted a troubling picture. The galaxy's economy was slowly grinding down. The rare earth minerals that humans used to provide have become scarce, his assistant, a nervous Altarian named Kelm, explained. Prices have increased by 400%. Many manufacturing operations are shutting down because they cannot afford the materials. Minister Dolmec studied the charts with growing concern. Humans had been excellent miners, able to extract resources from worlds that other species found too difficult or dangerous to work. Without their expertise, many important materials were becoming nearly impossible to obtain. "What about the medical supplies?" he asked. Kelm's expression grew even more worried. "Even worse. The humans were developing treatments for 17 different diseases that affect council species. All of that research has been lost. The epidemic on Zorax III is spreading because we no longer have access to the antiviral treatments that humans were producing." Minister Dolmec set down the reports and rubbed his temples. When the council had forced humanity to leave, they had focused on the political and military aspects. No one had carefully considered the economic consequences. "What about the species that the humans were helping?" he asked. "The primitive ones they were uplifting?" "Gone," Kelm replied simply. "All of them. The Catharans, the Nereidans, the Vorthons. They all disappeared at the same time as the humans. We have lost contact with 47 different species." This was perhaps the most disturbing development of all. Those species had been sources of unique technologies and resources. The Catharans had been developing new forms of quantum communication. The Nereidans had mastered underwater manufacturing techniques. The Vorthans had been working on crystal-based computing systems, all gone. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source. Director Yalth of Council Intelligence was reviewing long-range sensor data when his assistant burst into his office. She was a young Vrexian named Senth, and she looked terrified. "Director," she said breathlessly, "you need to see this." Yalth looked up from his work. Director Yalth was old, even for a Vrexian, and he had seen many things that others would find alarming. But the fear in his assistant's voice made him pay attention. "What is it?" he asked. Senth activated the large display screen in his office. It showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with known space highlighted in blue and unknown regions shown in dark gray. "Our deep space monitoring stations have been detecting anomalies at the galactic rim," she explained. "Energy signatures that do not match any known technology." Yalth studied the display. The anomalies were clustered in the dark space between galaxies, beyond the edge of Council territory. "Industrial activity?" he guessed. "On a massive scale," Senth confirmed. "But, Director, there is more." She pressed another control and the display changed. Now it showed movement vectors, tracks that indicated the paths of large objects moving through space. "We have detected ships," she continued. "Many ships. They are moving in organized formations in the intergalactic void." Yalth felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Ships belonging to whom? We do not know. But some of the energy signatures match readings we recorded during the human evacuation. The director stared at the display for a long moment. When the humans had left, Council intelligence had tried to track them, but the evacuation fleets had vanished into the dark regions beyond the galactic edge. Most analysts had assumed they had fled to some distant, barren region where they would struggle to survive, but these readings suggested something very different. "How many ships?" Yalth asked quietly. Senth's voice was barely a whisper. "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. And Director, they are not just moving randomly. They appear to be organizing." That night, Director Yalth called an emergency meeting of the Council Intelligence Committee. The 7 senior intelligence officials from different council species gathered in a secure chamber deep beneath the Concordia station. "We may have a problem," Yalth began without preamble. He activated the display and showed them the sensor readings. The reaction was immediate and uncomfortable. Admiral Korthak, who served as the military liaison to the Intelligence Committee, leaned forward in his chair. "Those formations," he said slowly, "they look like battle groups." "Battle groups. Organized around vessels we have never seen before," added Intelligence Chief Vorthak of the Hegemony. "Look at these size estimates. Some of these ships are larger than our biggest dreadnoughts." But the most disturbing revelation came from Dr. Sethis, the Council's chief xenotechnology specialist. She was a crystalline, a species known for their ability to analyze and understand foreign technologies. "I have been studying the energy signatures," she announced. "They match some readings in our oldest archives, technologies that we encountered thousands of years ago before the current council was formed." The room fell silent. The Council had been the dominant power in the galaxy for over 10,000 years. The idea that there were older technologies, older civilizations, was troubling. "What kind of technologies?" Director Yalth asked. Dr. Sethis manipulated the display to show technical readouts. Space folding drives that can cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Gravity manipulation systems that can move planets. Energy weapons that could destroy star systems. Admiral Korthak studied the data with growing alarm. If these readings are accurate, then the beings out there have technology that is centuries ahead of our own. "Millennia ahead," Dr. Sethis corrected grimly. The implications were staggering. The Council had always maintained its power through technological superiority. They had the best ships, the most advanced weapons, the most sophisticated systems. That was how they controlled the galaxy. But if there was a civilization out there with vastly superior technology, and if that civilization was somehow connected to the humans, "We need more information," Director Yalth declared. "I want our fastest scout ships to investigate these anomalies. I want to know who is out there and what they want." But even as he gave the orders, Yalth suspected it might already be too late. The readings suggested that whatever was being built in the dark between galaxies was nearly complete. 3 months later, the first scout ship returned. The others never did. The surviving scout, a fast Altarian vessel called the Swift Wind, had barely escaped with its life. Its captain, Commander Yelix, was a seasoned veteran who had explored the dangerous regions of space for 30 years. But when he reported to the Council, his hands were shaking. "There are structures out there," he reported. "Massive structures. Space stations the size of small moons. Shipyards that stretch for thousands of kilometers. And ships. So many ships that they block out the stars." "What kind of ships?" Admiral Korthak demanded. Commander Yelix closed his eyes as if trying to forget what he had seen. "Ships like nothing in our databases. Some appear to be made of living metal that reshapes itself. Others seem to exist partially outside normal space. And the largest ones—" He paused, struggling for words. "The largest ones are the size of cities." "Did you make contact?" Director Yalth asked. "They knew we were there," Commander Yelix replied. "I could feel them watching us. but they let us leave. I think they wanted us to return and report what we had seen. Did you see any humans? Commander Yelix nodded slowly. Yes, but not the humans we remember. These humans were different. They moved with confidence, as if they belonged there, and they were working alongside species we have never encountered before. Ancient species, I think. Very ancient. That night, as Director Yalth sat alone in his office reviewing the Scouts' report, he began to understand the magnitude of... The message came without warning, broadcast across every communication channel in Council space. It appeared on military frequencies, civilian networks, even on personal communication devices. No encryption could stop it. No security system could block it. The signal was crystal clear, transmitted in perfect translations of every known language simultaneously. When it played on the emergency session of the Galactic Council, the chamber fell into absolute silence. Greetings to the Galactic Council, the voice said. It was human, female, calm, and confident. This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Commonwealth, speaking on behalf of the Outer Rim Alliance. We represent a confederation of 47 species who have chosen cooperation over subjugation. The same Sarah Chen who had been their ambassador 3 years ago. But her voice carried a different weight now, the authority of someone who commanded real power. Some of you may remember us, the message continued. We are the species you deemed primitive, unworthy, dangerous. We are the ones you scattered to the dark spaces between galaxies. We are the ones you thought you could control. Zethkai sat, frozen in his chair, his forearms gripping the armrests so tightly that his knuckles showed white through his blue skin. Around the chamber, other council members shifted nervously, their various sounds of distress creating a symphony of fear. We have not forgotten you, Admiral Chen's voice continued, and now there was something cold in her tone. We remember every species you conquered, every civilization you destroyed, every people you deemed unfit for your version of galactic order. The transmission changed, and now the chamber's main display showed images that made several council members gasp in shock. They were pictures of the structures that had been detected in the void, but seeing them clearly for the first time revealed their true scale. Space stations that dwarfed entire planets. Shipyards where vessels the size of continents were being constructed. Fleets of ships so numerous they formed spirals of light in the darkness. The Commonwealth extends an invitation to all peoples of this galaxy, Admiral Chen continued. We offer a choice that the Council has never given, the choice to join us as equals or to remain as you are. But it was what came next that changed everything. Some of you may be wondering how this is possible, Admiral Chen said. How did a primitive species like humanity acquire such technology? How did we build such fleets? The answer is simple. We came home. The display changed again, and now it showed a star map unlike any the Council had ever seen. It showed not just their galaxy, but dozens of other galaxies stretching across the universe. And connecting them all were lines of light, trade routes, communication networks, the infrastructure of a civilization that spanned the cosmos. 3 million years ago, humanity first left Earth, Admiral Chen explained. We spread across the universe, establishing colonies in 1,000 galaxies. We encountered other species making the same journey, beings fleeing the same kinds of oppression that the Council represents today. The revelation hit the Council chamber like a physical blow. Several members stood up from their seats, making sounds of disbelief and denial. But Admiral Chen continued. Together we formed the Commonwealth. We learned that cooperation was stronger than conquest. We discovered that diversity created strength rather than weakness. We built a civilization based on mutual respect and shared growth. Director Yalth felt his world shifting beneath him. Everything he had believed about galactic history, about humanity's place in the universe, had been wrong. But we never forgot our origins, Admiral Chen said. We never stopped watching our home galaxies. When our lost children, The humans of Earth developed spaceflight and encountered the Council. It was a test. The display showed recordings of human colonies being established, of first contact with the Council, of the gradual escalation that had led to the Ultimatum 3 years ago. We wanted to see if the galaxy had changed, if perhaps the cycle of oppression and conquest had finally been broken, if maybe the Council could learn to share the galaxy with others as equals. Zethkai found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. Impossible. We monitored Earth. We studied human development. You were primitives. Admiral Chen's laugh came through the speakers, warm but not particularly friendly. You monitored what we wanted you to monitor. The humans of Earth were guided, protected, watched over by the Commonwealth for their entire history. Did you really think it was an accident that humanity developed faster than light travel so quickly? That they were so effective at establishing colonies? The implications were staggering. Everything the Council thought they knew about humanity had been a lie. They had not been dealing with a young, primitive species. They had been dealing with the advanced scouts of the oldest and most powerful civilization in the universe. The test has concluded, Admiral Chen announced. The Council failed. The display changed one more time, and now it showed the Council's own territory. But the view was from outside, from ships positioned at the edges of Council space, ships that had approached undetected. Our fleets are now positioned around all major Council worlds, Admiral Chen said matter-of-factly. We could destroy your entire civilization within hours. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your shields cannot stop us. Your fleets are as primitive to us as stone axes would be to you. The chamber erupted in panic. Council members began shouting, some demanding immediate military action, others calling for surrender. Admiral Korthak was frantically trying to contact the Council fleet, but his communications were being blocked. But we are not here for conquest, Admiral Chen continued, and her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. We are here to offer something the Council has never offered anyone, a choice. The chamber fell silent again, though the air trembled with fear and tension. The Commonwealth offers membership to any species that wishes to join us. You will be treated as equals. Your worlds will remain your own. Your cultures will be respected and preserved. In return, you will have access to our technology, our knowledge, our protection from the hostile forces that exist beyond this galaxy. Several Council members looked at each other. The offer was tempting, especially given the obvious futility of resistance. For those who choose not to join us, Admiral Chen continued, we offer isolation. You may remain in your current territory, governing yourselves as you always have, but your expansion will end here. Your conquests will cease. You will never again impose your will on species that choose a different path. And if we refuse both options, Zethkai managed to ask. There was a long pause before Admiral Chen replied. When she did, her voice was sad, rather than threatening. Then you will learn what it feels like to be on the receiving end of the Council's own methods. The transmission began to end. But Admiral Chen had one final message. We give you the same amount of time you gave us, 72 hours to decide. Choose wisely. The Commonwealth has been patient for 3 million years. Our patience is not unlimited. The signal ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. It was Councillor Thessarian, the jellyfish-like being, who spoke first. We must evacuate the core worlds immediately, she said, her tentacles glowing with agitation. If their technology is as advanced as they claim— No! Zethkai shouted, standing up on shaking legs. We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not be dictated to by escaped primitives. But even as he spoke, reports were coming in from across Council space. Ships were appearing in orbit around major worlds. Ships that had somehow bypassed every sensor, every defense, every warning system. Ships that hung in space like silent threats, waiting. Director Yalth studied the tactical displays with growing despair. The Commonwealth had positioned their forces with precision, that spoke of detailed knowledge of Council defenses. They knew exactly where every important facility was located, every key weakness in Council strategy. They have been watching us, he realized aloud. Not for 3 years, for centuries, maybe millennia. They know everything about us. Admiral Korthak looked. Up from his communication console, his expression G. The war lasted exactly 17 minutes. It began when Admiral Korthak, desperate to prove that the Council still had power, ordered the remaining fleet to attack the Commonwealth ships positioned around Vexaria Prime. 200 of the Council's finest warships, vessels that had conquered dozens of star systems, launched their assault. The Commonwealth did not even bother to fight back. Instead, the Council ships simply stopped. Their engines went dead. Their weapons powered down. Their life support. Systems continued working, but everything else shut off completely. The great warships drifted helplessly in space like abandoned hulks. What did they do to us? Admiral Korthak demanded over the communication system, his voice filled with panic. The answer came from Admiral Chen herself, her voice broadcast directly into every Council ship simultaneously. "We turned off your technology," she said simply. "Your ships, your weapons, your defenses, they all use principles that we discovered millions of years ago. We know how to disable them without causing harm to your crews. In those 17 minutes, the Commonwealth demonstrated their complete technological superiority without killing a single Council soldier. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. Your crews are safe," Admiral Chen continued. "We will return them to Council territory, but your military resistance ends now." The remaining Council leadership watched from the Concordia station as their entire fleet was gently but firmly escorted to the edge of their territory and released. The ships were functional again, but the message was clear. The Commonwealth could disable them anytime they chose, but the real demonstration of power came next. Instead of pressing their military advantage, the Commonwealth began what they called the Restoration. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commonwealth ships appeared in the orbit of worlds that had been damaged by centuries of Council rule. But these were not warships. They were something entirely different. Vessels that looked more like living organisms than machines, capable of repairing environmental damage on a planetary scale. On the poisoned world of Kalos, where Council mining operations had stripped away the atmosphere and left the surface, barren Commonwealth ships began the delicate work of restoration. They rebuilt the atmosphere molecule by molecule. They restored the ocean from archived genetic samples. They even brought back extinct species, recreating entire ecosystems from stored biological data. The process took only days. "How is this possible?" Dr. Sethis asked as she watched the transformation through long-range sensors. The crystalline scientist had devoted her life to understanding technology, but what she was seeing defied every principle she knew. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the Commonwealth ships transmitted a detailed technical briefing, openly sharing the principles behind their restoration technology. "They are not hiding their methods," Dr. Sethis reported to the Emergency Council session. "They are teaching us. They want us to understand what they can do." The technology was based on principles so advanced that they seemed like magic. Matter converters that could transform any element into any other element. Genetic reconstructors that could bring extinct species back to life. Atmospheric processors that could create breathable air from cosmic dust. But the most impressive demonstrations were yet to come. The Commonwealth ships moved to worlds where Council policies had led to wars, famines, and social collapse. But instead of simply providing aid, they did something more profound. They gave the inhabitants the tools to rebuild their own civilizations. On the war-torn world of Sektos, where two Council-sponsored factions had been fighting for decades, Commonwealth representatives arrived with technology that made the war meaningless. Food replicators that could feed everyone, energy systems that could power entire cities, medical devices that could heal any injury or cure any disease. Within weeks, the warring factions put down their weapons and began working together to rebuild their world. The same pattern repeated across dozens of systems. The Commonwealth was not conquering worlds, they were healing them. "They are making us irrelevant," Councillor Thessarian observed during one of the few remaining council meetings. "They are solving every problem that we claimed could only be solved through control and force." It was true. The council had always justified its authority by claiming that only strong central government could maintain order, prevent wars, and ensure economic stability. But the Commonwealth was proving that cooperation and shared resources could achieve better results than conquest and domination, and they were doing it without forcing anyone to join them. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together on Commonwealth-sponsored projects. Former council subjects were helping to restore worlds that had been damaged by council policies. Even some of the original council species were quietly sending representatives to learn about Commonwealth methods. Director Yalth found himself in the strange position of being the intelligence chief for an organization that no longer had anything meaningful to gather intelligence about. The Commonwealth was sharing their technology openly. Their methods were transparent. Their intentions were clear. "They are not hiding anything from us," he reported to Zethkai. "In fact, they seem to want us to understand exactly what they are capable of." "Why?" Zethkai asked. He had aged years in the past few weeks, his blue skin looking pale and tired. "Because they want us to make an informed choice," Director Yalth replied. "They want us to understand the consequences of continued resistance." Those consequences were becoming increasingly clear. The Council's remaining territory was shrinking daily, as more worlds chose to join the Commonwealth or accept Commonwealth protection. Trade was collapsing as economic partners switched to Commonwealth technologies that made old forms of commerce obsolete. But the most devastating blow came when the Commonwealth made an announcement that changed everything. "To the people of the former Council territories," Admiral Chen's voice declared across all communication channels, "the Commonwealth extends a personal invitation to every individual who wishes to join us. You do not need the permission of your governments. You do not need to wait for official decisions. Any person who wishes to live in a Commonwealth society may do so." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Millions of beings from across Council space requested transportation to Commonwealth worlds. They were not refugees. They were emigrants, choosing to leave the Council behind for a better life. The Commonwealth provided transport ships for anyone who wanted to leave. But they also did something that surprised everyone. They provided the same advanced technology to the worlds that people were leaving behind. "We do not want to depopulate your worlds," Admiral Chen explained in a follow-up message. "We want to give everyone the tools to build the kind of society they want to live in." It was a masterstroke of diplomacy. The Commonwealth was proving that they could easily take over the galaxy if they wanted to. But they were choosing instead to let people make their own decisions. On the Council world of Hagaris, Governor Vorthan watched as half his population requested transport to Commonwealth territories. But instead of trying to stop them, he found himself asking a different question. Why did they want to leave? The answer was simple. The Commonwealth offered something that the Council never had: genuine freedom and opportunity for everyone, regardless of species, status, or background. After 2 months of watching this transformation, even Zethkai began to understand that the old way of doing things was over. He sat alone in the vast council chamber, looking at the empty seats where his fellow councilors had once sat. Most had left to join their species' negotiations with the Commonwealth. A few had chosen retirement on isolated worlds. Only he remained, the last representative of an order that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. The door opened, and, to his surprise, a human walked in. Not Admiral Chen, but a younger woman in civilian clothes. She approached slowly, her hands empty and visible. "Who are you?" Zethkai asked. "My name is Dr. Lisa Park," she replied. I'm a xenoanthropologist with the Commonwealth. I study how different species adapt to change. Have you come to study my failure? Zethkai asked bitterly. Dr. Park sat down in one of the empty chairs, treating him not as a defeated enemy, but as a colleague. I've come to offer you a choice that no one has offered yet. Zethkai looked at her with curiosity. The Commonwealth needs people who understand how the old system worked, Dr. Park continued, not to recreate it, but to help us avoid its mistakes. Your knowledge, your experience, even your failures could help us build something better. You want me to join you? I want you to help us understand what went wrong, Dr. Park said gently. The council wasn't evil. It was a system that gradually lost its way. We want to make sure the Commonwealth doesn't make the same mistakes. Zethkai considered this for a long moment. And if I refuse? Then you are free to live wherever you choose, under whatever government you prefer, Dr. Park replied. The Commonwealth doesn't force anyone to join us. That was the Council's mistake. As she spoke, Zethkai finally understood what the humans had been trying to show them all along. True strength came not from the ability to force compliance, but from the wisdom to offer genuine choices.